Hello.
Yes,
Hi.
yes. You don't know. It's a platform for entertainment. Kevin Johnson here, yeah. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to my channel. Today we've got a special guest. Please introduce yourself, please.
My name is Sarah.
Okay.
I'm
You go on. Sorry.
I'm 24 and I'm a mum from South London.
Okay, you don't know. And today's topic is going to be influences on the younger generation. Yeah?
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about the kind of pressures that are put on the young people, what may be influencing them to commit those crimes. We're going to try and look at as many factors as we can possible, and obviously we're going to get a little insight on your concerns of, you said you've got a young son, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have some concerns about him growing up in these environments. So I'll personally say, me growing up, I grew up in Tottenham, yeah,
Uh-huh.
Northumberland Park, and I lived with my grandmother like Monday to Fridays. This was in the 90s, the early 90s, and I went to a school just down the road from my nan's called St. Paul's and All Hallows. And growing up in Tottenham, I remember there was a lot of crime going on, but because social media wasn't really around, things were not really as publicized as they are now. But there were things going on. And I was raised, well, my nan was Nigerian. God rest her soul. She died in 2005. Rest in peace. Love you forever. Well, she grew up back home in Nigeria, so she always taught me how to conduct myself. She taught me how to have discipline. She taught me the basics, how to be a man, because growing up without a father was obviously a tough challenge. I was raised by women, by the way. My mum also I stayed with on weekends. So in Stratford, I would stay with my mum on the weekends and then come back to my nan's. So I was always raised to not be involved in crime that was going on and all the things that the younger youth were involved in. But I was going to ask you, what are your concerns? Do you feel like you have concerns with, as the fact that you have a young son growing up? What are the fears that you have? Do you think?
That children are dying younger and younger. There's kids that are like 13, 14, getting stabbed and dying. And my son is 6. He's not far from 14, 13.
Yeah.
What would I do if it was my child? How long do I have left before it's my child? And it's not nice to think like that, but when that's all you see going on around you, you do worry.
Yeah. Yeah. So the area, we're not going to say where you live for confidential purposes, but the area that you live in, would you say that you feel there's high activity of gang crime over there, or what do you feel?
Definitely. Definitely.
And
I feel like it's not just within my area. I feel like it's South London on a whole and London.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like, it's very high in London.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's quite interesting. So do you so what kind of things do you fear will happen with your young son as he gets older? What are the biggest fears you feel you have?
One of my biggest fears would be that the way how the younger generation move of today and how they're influenced, like, would he be safe going up with like children of his age? Because you can protect your own child as much as you can, not really allow them to see certain things, but when they get older, they're going to have friends, and you don't know specifically how other parents deal with their children or what they're exposed to. So even if I do my job as a parent, who's to say that he's not going to be influenced by his friends?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, you hear stories of where friends stab their friends or friends kill their friends, and like sometimes your friend isn't actually your friend.
Yep.
Like, there's so many different aspects to worry about when you have children.
Yeah.
So many different aspects.
Yeah. So, do you feel? How does that, like? What kind of stress? What kind of? We're not going to go too deep because we don't want to go too deep, but we want to kind of get just an insight for the other mothers that are in the same position that have children as well, that they may be worried about, that don't have information about what's really going on. This is your chance to obviously go a little bit more in depth about what kind of stress or pressure does that put on you as a mother? How does that make you feel? What kind of,
It makes you feel scared that, like, your children are growing up, because every year you're getting older. And, like, I've even seen it with myself, like, when you was, like, 14 and stuff, and, oh, when I'm 16, I'm going to do this. And when you reach 16, okay, when my 18th birthday comes, I'm going to do this. Like, you're getting older and stuff like that. And obviously, the more older that your children get, like, it's harder to protect them from things, because obviously they're going to find their own paths. So, like, even though you do your child right and teach them right, what's the path that he's going to take? What is the path that he will follow? And will he follow the path that I'm trying to take him down? In terms of, like, his company and staying safe. And to be honest, a lot of things that worry me is, like, crime. Because there's stories that you read where there isn't even a reason for someone to kill someone. Like, it's not a reason for someone to take somebody's life. It just happened. And those are the kind of things, is like, where no matter how much you've prepared, you can't prepare for. And that makes me worried, because if you can prepare so much and can't prepare, it's kind of out of your hands. And that's scary. Like, it's really scary. Like, imagine having a child, carrying your child for 9 months, and then just having them taken away from you. Like, I don't even want to feel that. I definitely don't want to feel that at all.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to anyone that it's ever happened to, because it's not nice. I can't relate, but it's not nice.
Yeah. Was you aware of the 2018? There was an uprising in multiple murders, stabbings, shootings. For the first time ever, London beat New York for the first time ever when it comes to the murder rate. I think that's quite shocking and quite terrifying to many people in London that have children here. So what was you aware of that?
I did hear something about that. And it, like, not that it doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't surprise me in a way, because when nowadays, like, you read so much stories and you hear so much things, that it's gotten to the point of where all you can say is, oh, that's sad, and life goes on. Now, you got to remember when you said, "Oh, it's sad," or you felt a certain way, that's somebody's life. Like, it's just like it's nothing. It's nothing to hear that somebody got stabbed. It's nothing to hear that somebody got shot. It's nothing to hear that somebody died anymore. It's just like it just happens. It's just normal, and it shouldn't be normal.
Yeah.
Like, it's not people are dying from natural causes. Like, people are dying from unnatural causes.
Yeah. 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 So what do you think about, as you know, Boris Johnson has obviously putting some new laws and terms in place when it comes to criminal convictions. So basically, one of the rules that he made was, in this country, when somebody normally commits a crime, they would spend, okay, let's say for instance, they get convicted for 15 years, they would normally do half in certain cases and scenarios. But now he's made it that if you do get 20 years, you're going to serve 20 and not do half. So do you think that is going to help the crime go down within the youths?
No.
Culture, or do you think it's going to make it improve? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to do anything.
Why do you
I
say
don't
that?
think it's going to do anything. If at the end of the day, if prison was a big deterrent, these things wouldn't be happening. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard people actually say, prison's warmer than my house. It's nothing to go to prison. It's not a deterrent.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to help, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so what do you think? So for the future, so I would say like, you saw basically, there was an incident that you showed me that just happened in Brixton. You sent me an article link about that.
Yeah.
That has obviously put some worries on you and your concerns.
Yeah.
What do you think about that situation that has just happened? Could you give me a bit insight of that situation?
I didn't read it too tough to tell you off the top of my head everything that happened.
Yeah.
But from the picture that I gathered, somebody that a boy knew stabbed him over £10.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's £10. Like, a £10 coin. Like, a boy died over £10. Somebody lost their life over £10. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, for example, I know I have £10 sitting in my account right now.
Yeah.
I could have given him that £10 for him to have his life.
Yeah.
Like, fair enough, it's not my child, but it's something so small. Like, like, how can somebody die over £10? Like, it's not. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I don't know what I would do if that was my child. I don't know what I would do if that was my child. Like, if I lost my child like that, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
And I think where being a mum, you kind of imagine the worst for your child before it happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, you always put yourself in another parent's shoes. Like, what would you do if you was that parent that this happened to?
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling is crazy. Like, I can't feel how that parent feels. And honestly, my heart goes out to her. But, like, it makes me feel scared. Because when I was growing up, like, to hear somebody got shot or stabbed, it was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many times have you heard this year alone that somebody's died over gun or knife crime?
Yeah, there's been many.
Too many. Too many. It's like every single day, every other day, you get up, normal news, like,
So yeah, that sounds quite insightful. So what do you think is influencing? What do you think influences a young, boy or a young boy growing into a man to do such things, to resort to such crimes, to join a gang? What do you think are the influences in your head, in your mind?
I think there's a lot of influences. Um, I would say like home upbringing,
Mhm.
not necessarily how a parent upbrings their child, but maybe like a lack of love at
Mhm.
home.
Yeah.
Because you can always like love your child, but does your child feel that love? Does your child feel like they can speak to you? Does that child feel like they can come and tell you if something's wrong, if they don't feel happy? Um, I think money is also a big factor.
Mhm.
Um, because I think if as parents we had money to do a lot of things with our children, they wouldn't result to hanging out on the street as much as they do now, or
Yeah.
not wanting to go home. Like after school, you see children on the road just idling.
Yeah.
Like 8 o'clock, you see girls outside on the road. What are you doing? It's 8 o'clock. You should be at home. Um, Another thing would be like friends influencing um each other.
Mhm.
Because like I said, you can do right by your child. Your child could come from a good background, but watch what their friend does, and want to obviously copy and follow behind that footsteps, and that could be a big factor as well.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
think music is definitely a big factor.
Yeah.
Music is definitely a very, very big factor because when I was growing up, I wasn't really allowed to listen to a lot of music. It was very limited as to what I listened to. And, like, for example, now I can sit down and I can play drill.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm hearing that they're stabbing and killing people. But for me, it's okay because I know I'm not going to get up and stab and kill someone. But for the younger generation, they're listening to the words and getting excited about what they're hearing.
Yeah.
And for them, it's like, okay, well, this is what the older generation are showing me, so this is okay. And they feel like it's nothing to act out what they're hearing in music. And I'm not trying to say that it's solely the music that's responsible. No, there is other factors, but it definitely doesn't help.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. So what do you think? So what do you think is the difference between you and somebody else with when you listen, if you do listen to a UK drill track,
Hmm.
um, obviously when we listen to UK drill music, those who listen to UK drill music, a lot of the music glorifies violence, on all sorts
Hmm.
of levels. And what do you think the difference is between you listening to it and it's not having an influence on you wanting to do these kind of violent things, and another person getting influenced by listening to UK drill music in comparison?
Um, Realistically, it is each one to their own because I could sit down and listen to it with a friend, and that friend could be influenced, but I might not be. It's
Hmm.
all about being smart. At the end of the day, I am smart enough to not deep what I'm listening to and pick up a knife and go and kill someone.
Hmm.
the person that I'm sitting down next to, sharing that music with, might not be.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because there might be other factors that are influencing this person that they now don't have that level of sense that I may have.
Mm-hmm.
So deep down, it boils down to each person.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
You just have to be clued up. You have to be smart. Like, nobody's saying don't listen to what you're listening to. Just don't be stupid.
Yeah.
There's a balance. If you don't have that balance, you're going to fall off. If you've got that balance, you're okay. But I don't think a lot of younger generation do have that balance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that's interesting to hear. Thanks for your points. What do you think about mental health? Because that's another thing that's not really brought up when these young youths are stabbing in one another and, you know, going to prison and dying and stuff. Like, no one really brings up mental health. Mm-hmm. Do you think mental health plays a huge role? Do you think there's some undiagnosed mental health issues going on within our community?
Very, very strongly. Very strongly. There is a lot of people like that have mental health that are not even aware themselves that they have mental health. Like a lot of the time on like my Snap or my social media, I will see like this friend say, "Oh, life's depressing," or "This is depressing." And when you think back to like 10 years ago, being in college, nobody was depressed because we had our little £5. We went out, we enjoyed life, we didn't have responsibilities. Like, life is getting harder, and the stresses of life it's not easy. I feel like there is definitely a lot of mental health within the younger generation, because even having a child and being around children and other mums, because obviously a lot of my friends now have children, there's a lot of mental health that's undiagnosed in schools. So, for example, nowadays, I don't know, like, you might be able to relate to this, but when you was in school, there might have been the one odd child with like ADHD or autism.
Yeah.
Now it's like one in every 3. Like, everybody knows somebody that has a child with autism, or like, it's just so common nowadays.
Yeah.
You go into schools and like there's a lot of children within schools that are not even being given the right amount of help because the government cuts and the government funding. They don't want to diagnose your child.
Yeah.
It just goes undiagnosed for years and years and years, which then means that children suffer because of it. Like, they're not being able to access the right help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite interesting that you say that. That could be. I'll put a little spin on everything. I think before I even get into what I'm gonna say, what do you think needs to be done in order to ensure that crime can be reduced when it comes to youth gangs activity? And with like mothers who have sons that are growing up in low economically developed areas where there's the high crime rate, what do you think the mothers could do to ensure their children are not getting involved in those things, in those kind of activities?
You have to be united.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be clued up.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be smart. You have to keep your eyes open. Like, that's the most that you can do, because deep down, anyone can hide anything. It's very easy for someone to show you a persona or show you what they want you to see, but hide the rest. And because of that, it's hard to always be on top of everything. But if, like, a lot of mums are aware of how things start, where things come from, the factors around, because a lot of mums will look at, okay, well, I'm doing this for my child. I'm trying to teach him the right thing, or trying to teach her the right thing. But it doesn't just stop there. And I think this is where unity also comes into it as well.
Yeah.
So I would say those 4 things mainly.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds interesting. So now I'm going to go into my analysis, or go into my story, or my opinion of what I think from my perspective growing up as a young man into a man. I'm 30 now. So from my perspective and what I have seen growing up, because I was around the streets, I weren't involved deeply into the gang culture, but I was around a lot of, guys that were involved in gang activity, the street guys. And for me, growing up, I realized fast that being a young man, you have to have a certain reputation. You have to be that popular guy. There's a lot of pressure coming from society of how a man is supposed to be. It's like a jungle, yeah? So you've got all these different kinds of wild animals, and it's like you have to stand your ground. And if you're seen in the least way of being a victim or a target, then you're gonna get eaten alive. So for me, growing up, it was like I see the mentality on the streets is like there's this mentality that young men have. It's like they want to belong to something. Do you know what I mean? They want to belong. Some of these young men have been raised without a father. Their mum is always out at work, so their mum is never really around to really be around them. So I think there's that lack of love being shown, and time, obviously, for that discipline to be installed. Not saying that there isn't mums that don't try to install discipline, but a lot of the time, these children, these young men, spend a lot of time around influences. Like, for instance, in school, there was a lot of, there was a particular kind of group of men young boys who, you could see they were getting influenced by others, do you understand, who were involved in certain kinds of activities. But it also goes down to having a sense of power as well. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, every young man is raised to believe that he has to be that boss. He has to be a mini gangster. Like you watch the film Godfather and Scarface. There's a sort of like kind of imitation that they want to be that guy that has everything: the money, the power, the respect, the women. So it comes into being kind of cultural as well, and it's like no one wants to be taken for a mug, especially like young men growing up. It's like you could be walking down the road, yeah, and you've got like a guy and another guy from a different area, and because they have this animalistic instincts embedded in them, which is what normally happens with young men that grow up around these neighborhoods, these hood areas, is they're kind of embedded that they have to protect their guards, defend themselves and be assertive. And it's also a lot of fear, insecurity. There wants to be this kind of image that people want to have, to be that guy that nobody can mess with, as I said. So there is a lot of pressure. There's even guys that grow up in neighborhoods who have no intention to be involved in gang crime or any kind of activity, but because maybe they might feel that they're going to be targeted if they don't display some sort of characteristic or some sort of energy they come with, they could be victimized. They then have to put up a guard. They have to now change their demeanor. They have to be a certain way. And this is what's happened with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So with a lot of young men, sorry. So, you know, there's a lot of that pressure going on. So it's not as easy as it is. But I'll say to you, do you feel like there's a few, there are some families, and I'll say especially with young men that grow up without their father around, do you think that plays a factor as well?
I would say to an extent, yes. Not 100%. I think just not being able to have strong males around you is a big factor. Because, say for example, somebody's dad passed away and their dad wasn't there, but their uncle was there and their uncle showed them good, they would probably still come out good because they had a strong man around them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of males nowadays don't have that, and that's where it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But deep down, obviously, first of all, you should have your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to the infrastructure of the community with young men, do you think also poverty is causing a huge problem with this as well?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because you can't win if you go to work to make money for your household. In a way, it's like you have to neglect your children. And if you stay home and you give all your children the love, you get criticized for being on benefits.
Right.
So no matter which way you turn, no matter which good you try to do, you never win.
Mm-hmm.
You never win.
Yeah.
And you can go to work. Like, if you're not working, you'll get, like, housing benefit. You get your rent paid for you. You get help with your council tax. And then you get your little benefit money, which allows you to survive. But you don't have money to do things other than to pay the bills, to eat, and just to have that little bit of change, which doesn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to work, you pay full rent, you pay full council tax, you pay tax, you pay for whatever household bills you have, you do your food shopping for the month, and then you have that little bit of money left.
Yeah.
There isn't a surplus of money. And if you notice, every time you're going to the shop, things are going up and up and up by 5p, by 10p, by 20p, by 30p. It all adds up.
Yeah.
10p plus 20p is 30. 30p plus 50p is 80p. 20p makes £1. That's £1 more. That's £10 more. That's £15 more. Everything is going up, and money is not really going up.
Yeah. So you think that has there's a pressure point there?
Definitely.
So what else could I? So basically, I think, in my opinion, that well, from what I've heard, like people say, you know, the government's to blame, society's to blame for why these young men are joining gangs and stuff like this. Do you agree with that? And what do you think the government what responsibility do you think the government needs to do to ensure that crime is being tackled, or to solve this gang activity going on and all these murders happening?
I do think that they can do more for young people. In terms of like free clubs and schemes for children to go to, because council tax is expensive, but do we really see it back? Yes, we see it back in some forms, but not in terms of what we need. So I would say more services for young people is a must. In terms of what they can do, if everybody pulls their weight, if they pull their weight in terms of providing services, parents stick together and pull their weight, I think it will make a big difference. It might not 100% solve everything, but it will do something. And something at this rate is better than nothing, because we can't keep waking up and hearing that children are dead.
That's actually interesting. So I would say we're going to wrap this up soon, but I was going to ask you a few more questions before we wrap it up. But you've got a young son. What kind of tactics do you use, that you intend to apply to ensure that your young son does not turn to the streets and end up joining this gang activity?
I try to have positive male role models around him. I monitor his behavior as well. I discipline him with love. So if he's doing something wrong, I don't just leave it. Like, I let him know he's doing something wrong. I monitor kind of who he's around. Even though he's young, I monitor who he's around, and I don't just like send him to friends' houses from school and stuff like that. I know where he is. He's with like my people.
Okay.
And I've kind of tried to teach him about being safe. So, like, for example, be careful how you speak to people. Don't start trouble with no one for no reason. If somebody troubles you, then yes, fine. But don't go out of your way to make trouble. Just keep yourself to yourself. Something I tried to teach him early.
Okay. So I was going to ask you, so what if, because there was a situation that I'm going to give you an example of a situation. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question regarding this. There was a young guy. He was about 18 at the time. This was about 4 years ago. He grew up in an estate in Tottenham. I'm not going to say what area, but he seemed like a cool guy, and he had a sister. His mum used to go out to work, and he was having continuous problems with a guy in the area. He didn't really go into detail, but he just said that this guy was continuing to try to pick on him and try to test him, and you know how it is on the streets. Young boys, they try to test each other, and it's an ego thing at times. But he ended up getting into a situation where he was trying to avoid it, but the mum didn't really understand the codes of the streets with the young men. It got to a point where he ended up, having to defend himself. I'm not going to say too much, but and that put him into prison, and it was likely, he said, he was going to do about 12 years. Now, what would you say about if your son is in a situation where he's getting picked on or he feels like his life is in danger and there's this kind of things going on, what would your emergency move be? You know, if it gets to a point where it's becoming like his life is in danger, God forbid, how would you act? What would you do?
The first thing that comes to my head is, it's dependent on the situation, if I could move my child out of that situation. So, for example, if I needed to move house, I would go. If it meant that I had to keep my child at home, and let's say like he came out with me, or I had to monitor where he went, I would do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because obviously my child is still young. So like year by year, like I'm going past every stage. But my first initial thing would be to move house. If it meant I had to move out of London, I would go. If it meant I had to move countries, I would go.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's pretty much interesting. Yeah, I don't think I have any more questions I want to ask. It's been a pleasure to have you on this show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to tell the audience about your business that you're doing? Just a little quick outro, how people can find out about what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm starting a cake business.
Yeah.
I've been baking for about 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm only now sort of starting to take it more seriously. So I'm just starting out. I would appreciate it if everyone checked out my portfolio. My Instagram is KROWNEANDBAKE. That's Crown and Bake.
Yeah. So are those the only platforms you're operating on Instagram?
I have a Facebook as well, which is Crown Bake.
Yep.
And I'm soon to start up a Facebook page also, which is in process. But my main one is Instagram.
Okay.
So you can have a look and check out my work.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, like I said, it's a pleasure. You don't know what it is already. Everyone, you've heard this discussion. We're wrapping this up. Don't forget to check out Crown Bake and her portfolio, her work, what she's doing. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. As you know, we're always bringing controversial topics. And, yeah, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube, yeah? As for now, we're signing out, yeah? Don't know, Kevin.
And Sarah.
All right, then. Don't know. Cool. Peace.